Oh, maybe not the yellow on yellow. I mean, I like yellow, but the double yellow is a little bit too much. Hold on, that's better. Hey guys, it's Jamie, and today I'm here with a trans-related Q&A. So a couple of weeks ago on Instagram, I asked you guys for your transition-related questions that could have been to do with my transition or advice for your own transition, whatever. And you guys sure asked a lot of questions. So what I've tried to do is pick out a few that would mean this video isn't ridiculously long, but also kind of covers the questions that were asked most frequently. If I don't answer your question and you really wanted to know the answer, then ask it down below and I will either answer it with a video link if I've answered it in a video before, or I will write out an answer to it for you, because I really want this video and the comments section to be full of advice and help. So if you have any questions, ask away. But hopefully I will have covered most of the topics in here, although there are a lot of topics, that's very unlikely. Yeah. Okay, let's just get on with the questions, okay? You ready? Glasses on again, because I need them to read the questions. Right, so, how to cope with waiting for treatment. This can be a tricky one. Being trans, I think you need to build up a lot of patience and a lot of just being able to go through the motions and dealing with dysphoria. It sucks so bad. But the way I found helped me deal with waiting for testosterone and surgery the best was just to know that it was coming. It maybe wasn't right around the corner, but it was on the horizon. I was working towards reaching those milestones, and I just tried to do what I could in the meantime. So it didn't do anything for me, but I did some working out whilst I was waiting for T. I tried to gain a little bit of weight, because I was even skinnier back then than I am now, if you can believe it. So just doing little things like that, keeping your mind off it, trying not to obsess over starting testosterone or getting surgery or whatever stage it is that you're waiting for in terms of treatment, and know that it will happen. Question number 2. Have you got any advice on dealing with an unsupportive family? This was probably the most frequently asked question I got when I asked for your guys' questions, and it's something that I don't have personal experience of in terms of my own family. I was really fortunate and I'm very grateful that my own family were all very supportive. But I have dealt with unsupportive people throughout my transition, so I can only really speak from that. Essentially, you can't make people be supportive. The best way is to try patience and education and gentle persistence to help them learn and understand more about you being trans. Try and find as many people as possible, like in real life friends, like teachers at your school, work colleagues, online friends, support groups, wherever. Find people who are supportive and just have them in your life, people you can talk to and get advice from, so you can get away from that unsupportive environment sometimes and know that there are people out there who support you. So concentrate on that, whilst at the same time trying to help your family become more supportive. Be open to their questions. It might have just been a massive shock to your parents or your siblings or whoever it is in your family that isn't accepting, and they might just need some time. So in summary, I think the best way is to surround yourself with as many other supportive people as you can. Be patient with your family and be willing to educate them. Time is the best healer, but there's no guarantee it's going to work out in the end. For me, my partner's family were hugely unsupportive of me and our relationship. It took years and it did take some difficult conversations, but we are getting to a place where there is a lot more support and acceptance there. So all hope is not lost, even if it's 3 years down the line and they're still unsupportive. People can become more supportive with time and education. It's very important. Okay, how can you deal with someone who persistently gets your name and pronouns wrong but insists they are supportive? Tricky one. Okay, for this one, I would say it's just consistent reminding. If they say they're supportive, maybe have that hard conversation with them, and if you don't feel like they're trying with names and pronouns, ask them why not, and try and get to the root of it. If they really are trying, then it's perfectly normal for people to slip up for quite a while. Like in my life, my parents, really supportive, tried their best right from the beginning with name and pronouns. Took them over a year to become consistent with it. It takes people a really long time to break that habit, and it might be that they feel like they support you, but they're just really struggling to get their head around referring to you with a different name and pronouns. So it might just require a really honest and open discussion with them about how they're feeling, what's going on, whether there's anything you can do to help them, maybe consistently reminding them when they use the wrong name and pronouns, and just being patient with them. It really does take people some time to get used to a new name and pronouns. What is the thing you love most about being trans? I think just the way it shaped me as a person. If I wasn't trans, I would not be the person I am today, and I'm proud of the person I am today. So I love the way it's opened up my world and just my own mind as well. It's really shaped me as a person. It's not everything to do with me. Being trans is a small part of me and my identity, but it has had a massive impact on my life, and I think it's made me a better, more accepting person. So yeah. How do you approach going to the men's bathroom for the first time pre-T? Oh, it's terrifying. It's really scary, and I put it off for so long. Like at college, I got permission to use the disabled toilets instead of the men's because I was so nervous about using the men's bathrooms pre-T. 99% of the time, in my own experience, guys will not look at other guys in the toilet. But bathrooms are a really tricky one. It's very important that you do what's safest. So if you feel that it is safe for you to use a male bathroom, then my recommendation, and this is how I got over it, is just go to a bathroom that you know is quiet most of the time. Keep your head down, straight into a stall, do your business, out again. Nobody's gonna pay you any attention, and once you do it the first time and the second time and the third time, it gets easier and easier. It's a non-issue for me in my life now, but it is tricky getting over that first step of using it. If you feel comfortable and like you're read as male frequently enough to use the male bathrooms, then just go for it. What was the first thing you did when you found out you're trans? I panicked. I freaked out a little bit, but it was also a moment of huge relief. So it was like this mixture of like, oh my god, I know what's going on, and holy shit, what's going on? Like, it was a very like scary but exciting time. The first thing I did really was just take some time for myself, get straight on Google, straight on YouTube, and finding people to relate to, finding out more information, and yeah, it just went from there. What alternative binding methods do you know? I'm not massively clued up on like DIY binding or alternative binding methods, but I do know some do's and don'ts, so I'm just kind of going to cover those and then a couple other alternatives that I do know of. So obviously you have your binders, but the alternatives to official binders that you should never ever do: never use ace bandages and never use duct tape. They can be damaging for your health and your chest, and it's just really not worth it. But what you can do, and I've heard people doing this and doing it safely, is use sports bras and layering and like tight like rash guard vest type things. So there are some alternatives. I would say the most common one is to go for a tight sports bra and layer up a little bit with like a tight vest top and then a t-shirt type thing. I know it's awful for summer, but binding is just horrible in summer anyway, and there's no real way to avoid that. Always carry around a little like mini fan and lots of water in summer when you're binding. Does hearing your birth name, even if it's not aimed at you, make you feel dysphoric or upset in any way? It doesn't bother me when it's not aimed at me at all. Like in the past few years, I've just completely gotten over hearing my birth name out of the context of myself. So if there's somebody in a TV show with the same name, or I see it written down, or even if I have to write like an email or speak on the phone to somebody with that name, it does not bother me. I can use that name in reference to other people. And I thought I was just okay with it in general, but very recently it kind of came up where somebody used it, not maliciously. They were just talking about me in the past and they didn't realize it was something that I was very uncomfortable with. And I didn't realize just how uncomfortable I still was with it if it was used to refer to me. If it's used to refer to me, I hate it, and it just puts me in a bit of a tizzy and bad headspace. But if it's not used to refer to me or like me in the past or whatever, I'm totally fine with it. It did take a while to get there though. It took a good like 3 years before I could like say it myself without cringing a bit. It's just one of those things that takes time. How to talk to parents about changing your name. The way I approached this is it was kind of like I came out as trans, and the conversation kind of naturally went to, okay, well if you're going to start living as male, then what about pronouns and name? And what I would say is do it once you feel like your parent or parents are kind of getting on board with you being trans. So if they're supportive straight away, that's great. If they're a bit hesitant, then maybe give them a bit of time before you introduce the fact that you want to change your name, because it is a big deal to parents for you to want to change your name. So do give them a bit of time with that, and definitely involve them in the process. So explain to them why it's important for you to change your name and what it means, and then maybe ask them what they would have called you if you'd been assigned the correct gender at birth. My parents would have called me Callum. I didn't go with that. I didn't feel like it suited me, but I had that conversation with my parents, and picking the name Jamie was a process that they were very much involved in. So I definitely think that's a great idea. Is it alright if I was feminine as a kid, and how do you deal with a lost childhood? Totally fine if you were the most feminine child in the world. The way you behaved and acted and whatever as a kid doesn't make you any more or less trans as an adult, or when you realise. It doesn't matter when you realise, so absolutely a-okay that you were feminine as a child. In terms of dealing with a lost childhood, I think I always felt like I'd lost my childhood and I wouldn't be able to speak about it, but because I'm very open about being trans in kind of like my day-to-day life and my friendship group and everybody knows that I'm trans, it's kind of not something that I have to hide. So I don't mind like if pictures come up where you would clearly label me in the picture as a little girl type thing. I used to feel like I'd lost my childhood, but I don't feel like that way anymore. So for you asking this question, or anybody out there who relate to this question, it might be a case that your feelings about it change in kind of when you're further into your transition. If you're out to the people in your life and your friendship group, you might not feel like you've lost your childhood. But if you don't live openly as trans, it can be a tricky thing to deal with. I think it's just one of those things that takes time to accept in your head. You find ways around it, you find certain photographs that you're happy to show people, you find a way of talking about your past. Like, I went to an all-girls secondary school, and that's kind of awkward when the topic of what secondary school did you go to comes up with people who didn't know it was trans, because there is girls' school in the name of the school. But you kind of find ways around it, and you need to find your own ways to deal with it. Like, everybody in my life refers to me as a kid as like Jamie and he, so it's kind of almost like just certain details about my childhood changed to match how I am now, if that makes sense. What are the best things, non-physically, to come out of transitioning? Just being happy. Like, that is the best thing. Just feeling happy with myself, feeling content, feeling more confident, not having to worry. It's almost like transitioning just lifted this unhappy, miserable cloud out of my life. That's really cliche, but it's just having that kind of improvement in how I feel about myself and within myself. And I think this is the last question. Yeah, last question. How to deal with dysphoria when not binding, such as sleeping and showering. I really struggled with taking my binder off at the end of the day. So when I got home, I really didn't ever want to take it off because I didn't want to face the fact that that's what my body looked like. But I think the way I dealt with it was thinking, for my health and in the long run, it's better for me to take this binder off now. I also had an amazingly supportive partner who encouraged me and said that it was best for my health that when I was home and like alone and stuff, I shouldn't bind, because you shouldn't bind for longer than you need to in terms of being in public. So yeah, it's realizing that it's the best thing for you, maybe not mentally in terms of how you feel about yourself, but physically in the long run, it's much better to take your binder off when you're at home, and you should never sleep in your binder. The way I got around sleeping in a binder is you could wear a sports bra so you don't feel things move as much, but still keep it fairly loose, and a baggy t-shirt. With showering is something that up until I got lower surgery, I was really just having to ignore aspects of my body to deal with the dysphoria when showering and when like undressed. It's only been very recently that I just feel almost like just zero dysphoria with that kind of thing. But it's something you start going through the motions with. Hop in the shower, you do what you need to do, you hop out, you get dressed, and then it's fine. What I did is I literally just ignored what was going on. I don't know if that's the best thing to do or the best advice to give you, but that's all I can think of. It was something I knew wasn't going to be forever. I knew my body wasn't going to be that way forever. And so I just kind of had to deal with and accept at the time that I hadn't had top surgery, I hadn't had lower surgery, and I just had to get on with life. I still had to shower, I still had to sleep, I couldn't bind 24/7, and it's just learning to go through the motions, except that things will change eventually, but for now, you just have to deal with what's there. And I know that sounds really harsh. That feels so harsh, I'm sorry. But that's how I dealt with it. It obviously won't work for everybody, but that's my advice. So yeah, those are all the questions, guys. This has felt like quite a serious video. I'm sorry, normally I like to be very light-hearted, but I think there's a lot of tricky topics to deal with when it comes to transitioning, and I wanted to take your questions seriously and give you the best advice I could. Obviously, not all of the advice is going to help you, not all of the advice is going to be relevant. I am just telling you from my own experience what I've seen has helped other people and things that are safe to do in terms of like the DIY binding, because first and foremost, keep safe, and yet just know that the old cliche saying of time is the best healer and things get better, they are both very true. Patience was like the best thing for helping me through my transition, and learning to deal with what I had at each stage and in the moment really helped me get through, and just knowing that things would change eventually really helped as well. So yeah, I hope you like this video. Again, if you have any questions or anything to build on what I've said, if I've said anything wrong, then do correct me. I always want to be corrected if I'm just spurting bollocks, you know? Leave your comments down below, guys. Leave your questions below. Social media links are also in the description box if you want to go check them out. And yeah, I will see you again very soon, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Much love. Bye!